What's up, guys? I'm Ernie. I'm back with the Face Off Sports Network, and today we're going to go over one of the most controversial quarterbacks in the league, Caleb Williams. Yes. Are we sleeping on a year two breakout? Um, you know, it's a very interesting topic. So, let's jump right in. Obviously, year one was ugly, right? But there's a lot that's changed. So, they got a new head coach in Ben Johnson. Everybody, all football fans know who Ben Johnson is. He's an elite offensive minded coach. They made major offensive line investments, and now he has stacked wide receiver weapons. So, again, I am not a Caleb Williams guy, but let's dive into why he might go off in 2025. So, the O line, there was a lot of problems last year. Caleb was sacked 68 times. Obviously, some of those sacks were his own fault. He was a rookie quarterback getting acclimated to the league, but majority of them obviously weren't his fault, right? He was actually sacked the third most times in NFL history. He was only behind Randall Cunningham, who had 72, I believe, and then David Carr, who had 76, right? So he was under a lot of pressure, and that's why they brought in Joe Thuney, right, play guard, Drew Dalman to play center, and Jonah Jackson to play guard. So they really solidified that interior. That's where their offensive line was the most penetrable. So that's really encouraging to see, right? And despite being under all of that constant pressure, Caleb only threw 6 interceptions, which obviously is really good composure from a rookie, right? He took sacks, like I said earlier, for sure, right? But, he didn't force throws or turn the ball over like most young quarterbacks would have. So that's a great sign heading into year two, right? And now, when you think about it, his weapons have completely upgraded as well. So, the Bears loaded up on the offensive side of the ball. Their first 3 picks, they had a first round pick and 2 second round picks. All went to the offensive side of the ball. They took Colston Loveland, 10th overall. They took Luthor Burden, I believe, in the 40s, maybe 45 overall. And then they took Ozzie Trapillo, who I think was one of the more underrated tackles in the entire draft. I thought this was crazy value. He is a giant from Boston College. And now that really solidifies up the tackle position because they have Darnell Wright at right tackle, who is an elite young player. He is definitely going to be one of the better tackles in the league. But now they finally have some good young competition for that left tackle position. I think they're going to give Trapillo every opportunity to win that job, and I think he's going to be a stud. But now you add those, wide receiver weapons and Loveland, the tight end. You add that to their current wide receiver room. Now you got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, and Luthor Burden. That is a very good class. Like that might quietly be a top tier supporting cast for a quarterback, And at the end of this, Ben Johnson is the key, right? He's the same offensive coordinator who, built a top offense in Detroit and is now in full control of Chicago. So Ben Johnson is building an absolute fortress around Caleb while giving him elite weapons. I'm not saying Caleb is better than Jaden Daniels or Drake May, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did rebound this year. And no, the Bears aren't going to win the NFC North, but they're rebuilding a scrappy, improved, fantasy-friendly team. And if Ben Johnson is who we think he is, we all might be too low on Caleb Williams. And again, I am not a Caleb Williams believer, but sometimes, and again, we're all wrong in fantasy all the time, right? But I think sometimes if you don't want to buy into the player, you got to look at the situation and you got to buy into the situation. It might be, a situation where it's hard for a player not to thrive. And I think that's the same with Caleb Williams here. You got an elite coach, you have an awesome offensive line now, you have an awesome, you know, group of weapons, right? How do you not take off this year? And you were the first overall pick, so I think Caleb should easily walk into 4,000 yards and throw for 30 touchdowns. And I think we could all be sleeping on him a little bit. I think if especially in dynasty super flex like startups, in that once you get to that wraparound from round 2 to 3, right, you usually see guys like Drake May, Bo Nix. I would still take Drake May and Bo Nix over Caleb Williams, but if they're both gone and Caleb's still lingering there and he's going to be your quarterback too, I'm going to I'm going to bite at the upside here, man. Again, it's risky. I don't love the player, but I love the situation and the upside is there for him to take off. So, I am saying invest in Caleb Williams this year, especially if the board falls the right way and there's no studs ahead of him. I think it's a good year to take a gamble on the upside. Thanks for joining us, guys. Caleb, is he going to break out this year? We'll find out. Make sure you comment and let us know what you think. Catch you next time.